This presentation is on Miranda v. Arizona, decided in 1966. In 1963, a man named Ernesto Miranda was arrested in Phoenix, Arizona. The police suspected him of kidnapping and assaulting a young woman. He was taken into custody and interrogated for about 2 hours. During this time, the police never informed him that he had the right to remain silent or the right to have an attorney present. He eventually signed a written confession, and the police used that confession to convict him in court. But there was a major issue. Miranda had no idea he had the right not to speak and had no legal support during questioning. His lawyers argued that this confession should not count because it was not truly voluntary. They said the police violated his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The case went through Arizona courts, and eventually the U.S. Supreme Court agreed to hear it. The big question became, does the Constitution require police to inform suspects of their rights before interrogation? Question 1. What specific part of Miranda's arrest explains why his confession may not have been voluntary? Here were Miranda's main arguments. His lawyers argued that the confession should be thrown out because he was never told he had the right to remain silent and never told he could have a lawyer. Without that information, his confession cannot be considered voluntary. They pointed to the self-incrimination clause of the Fifth Amendment, which says no person can be forced to give evidence against themselves. They said that even if police did not physically threaten him, the situation was still inherently oppressive because he didn't know his rights. They also argued you can't waive your rights if you don't know what those rights are. Therefore, the state had violated his constitutional protections. Question 2. Why did Miranda's lawyers argue that he couldn't have knowingly waived his rights?
Now for the defendant's side of the argument. The police that arrested Miranda followed Arizona state law, which at the time said that warnings were not legally required before questioning. Second, Miranda had chosen to confess, and due to the no evidence that he was physically mistreated, there was no way of him saying that he was tortured into signing a confession. In addition, Arizona had argued that requiring warnings would end up slowing down investigations and making it harder for police to actually arrest suspects. Also, confessions had historically been admissible if they appeared voluntary, even without explicit rights being read, meaning if a suspect had committed a crime and confessed to it, regardless of what the police done, he could have been charged for it. Howdy, folks. Question number 3. Why was Arizona against giving warnings? Well. Here we are at the Supreme Court ruling of Miranda v. Arizona. So, the Supreme Court had voted 5-4 in the favor of Miranda, and the Supreme Court had also said that the Fifth Amendment ends up protecting people from being forced to incriminate themselves, and that this protection only really works if the suspect actually knows their own rights, which in this case, Miranda didn't. Because of that, officers must also inform people of these rights before they end up interrogating them. This often happens before a suspect is placed in the back of a police car. This idea was also applied to the states through the 14th Amendment following. This decision now led to what we now call the Miranda warnings. These Miranda warnings are often shown in movies and TV shows, and it gives us a great way to see those rights, such as the right to remain silent, the fact that anything you can do or say will be used against you in court, the right to have a lawyer, and that if you can't afford one, that lawyer should be appointed to you. The Chief Justice at this time was our big old famous homeboy, Earl Warren, and he had also written the majority opinion. His ruling emphasized that for a confession to be valid, a suspect has to actually understand their own rights first. So basically, this case shaped how police question people and how we can protect suspects from unintentionally giving up their constitutional rights. So, now we get into why this case actually matters. And I'm so glad you asked. So, this case wasn't just important for Miranda himself. It really changed the way that policing worked in the U.S. Before this ruling, people's constitutional rights were understood, but just in theory. This decision made them something that officers actually had to communicate on the spot. This ensured anybody in custody knew the protections before the questioning actually began. This case is also a really big deal to AP because it's a clear example of the Bill of Rights being applied to the states through the 14th Amendment. It shows the Supreme Court stepping in to put limits on governmental power in order to protect its individual rights for citizens. In the long term, the ruling had a huge impact on civil liberties. For example, a confession nowadays usually won't be used in court if the officers never gave the proper Miranda warnings. It also raised public awareness about everyday rights, influenced privacy and due process laws, and even helped shape later criminal justice reforms. And of course, it sparked a larger national debate about where the line between keeping the public safe and protecting personal freedoms actually lies. 1, 2, 3. Question number 4. Which of these is not a reason that the case had a lasting impact on civil liberties?